Hey guys, have you?
Oh,
Good. Um, I've just watched the movie a couple of days ago, I think it was, and
are you
I
okay?
was, yes, I'm fine, and I recognize all of the usual Nick Frost stuff and some new things, and I was so excited by it. Um, Actually, I'm gonna start with you. How did you get involved in this, and are you a fan of horror?
I'm not a fan of horror, but I'm a fan of Nick Frost. And so that's what managed to pull me in. And Nick messaged me on Instagram and said, would you like to come to Finland and eat herring? And I thought, oh, I think I've got a boyfriend and you've got a wife. But then I realized he was actually approaching me about a film, rather than my normal dating chat about fish. And so, yeah, so I was like, oh my God, lucky me. And I still feel like that I get to be part of the Nick Frost universe, which it's such a rare thing, I think, for any actor to have sort of a genre surround them and to have a fan base like that. It really is. And someone else earlier on was talking about it, and like in the States, they have like Judd Apatow films and stuff like that. And I think in the UK and Ireland we have Nick Frost. And so that was what drew me in. And I think I definitely got all of that when I arrived. Every day we had such a laugh filming it, and we got so many. Myself and Sebastian and Maisie would sometimes just sit like seals, being like oh, as like Nick would perform little silly bits and pieces and jokes for us. So I think we really got our values worth of the Nick Frost thing. But the horror was actually quite funny because when you're actually filming a horror, you're covered in sort of jam in the forest, and there's a lot of just wanting a cup of tea type of thing. So it doesn't feel as scary when you're filming it as when you're watching it.
Nick, you obviously right. You've written this, and how does it feel to be thought of as like an author? Do you find the whole thing extremely pretentious, or are you embracing your authorness or authorship?
Um, no, I mean, I love working and I think you get to a point and an age, and mine was about 5 or 6 years ago when you suddenly realize, let's just write a book, write a couple of books, write a film, write another film, write a TV show. And I think you reach an age where you just naturally get taken more seriously because you're 50, or whatever. And I recognized that that was my time, and I wanted to. I didn't want to sit around anymore and wait for people to write things for me. I thought, well, fuck it, why not?
Mm.
What are you? Here's a good idea. This is a funny idea. This is an idea where we could absolutely write a film. So just let's just write it. And I think fortunately, my dream when I was a kid was to be like a novelist and to spend 2 years writing one sentence and in love with a possibly beautiful woman who could never love me back, living in like a garret
Well, I
in.
talked to your wife, and I think you actually have,
I
achieved
did
the dream at
do
least.
that, yeah. But
Yeah.
that, and when you realize when you start writing for television and writing for films, it's like you don't have that. It's like you have 6 weeks to write a draft,
Mm.
so go. So, and I love that actually. So I can sit and I'll put the telly on at 9 a.m. and I'll watch films until 4 in the afternoon, and I would have written 10 pages.
Is it
And
less stressful to sort of be working on like scenes like for TV than it is to write a whole script around a movie? You
no,
find?
no, I mean, because if you write 6 episodes of something, it's still, what, 150 pages. It's still the same. It's the same.
I think what can slightly maybe feel stressful is that you have to plot things, whereas with a film, you know the end and everyone has to
Yeah,
die, even if it's metaphorically in the end of a film. Whereas with TV shows, you do have to sort of manage, oh, when are the adverts coming in? And then there's like, there's a lot more practical things I think to take into account when you're writing a TV show. But with film, you can kind of maybe take your pen on a bit of a walk
yeah.
more.
Fortunately, I had the end. The end was the first thing I wrote.
I
And then
think sorry to interrupt.
you're right.
You guys all sort of were supposed. I guess Stefan was saying he's wanted to sort of film in Sweden, but that didn't happen, so you ended up in Finland. How was that? How was like finding yourself in Finland? I mean, it looked
Oh, we
beautiful.
adored it. I'd never been
Yeah.
anywhere like that before, and I'd never been that far north on the planet before either. So it was such a treat, and I think we often felt like look at the landscape we're filming in, and like as Nick said, before we were like getting to actually swim in a lake. Like we were doing things that you hear actors talk about in interviews when they go on retreats, but we were actually getting to do this stuff. Like, you know, when people go hiking and they're like, you're like, when did you get the time? And we actually got to do healthy things like swim in lakes and stuff like that. And it was a real, because we were sort of out there isolated away, and also filming with a crew where the main language was English, but we had crew members and cast members from Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Ireland, England, the UK,
Yeah,
South
that, yeah.
America, Spain. So there were so many languages going on as well, and that we had like our little family unit. And you did sort of feel like we had gotten away on a little family holiday as well. So it was gorgeous, you know. And then we had this lovely
Always,
script as well.
what was nice for me as well is probably 2 or 3 times a week, a crew member would come and tell me where in the city does the best cinnamon buns.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's like, oh shit, fine. I'll go and try 3 cinnamon buns, and I'll let you know which
Yeah.
one I like.
Yeah.
I love
And
cinnamon buns. For
also
me, it's the dream.
we did have that sort of time in our hands of the weekend. So we would, and it was quite a small place we were, so you got to explore. So you actually got to, and we really got to, I feel like I really lived in Finland,
Yeah.
because we got to live in this gorgeous sort of Tampere where we lived was really beautiful. But small, so you sort of got to feel like you did, you know, tick, we've done it type of thing.
Nick, not to give anything away, obviously, I promise you we'll not give anything away because that will completely destroy the whole premise. So, I was speaking to Sebastian and Maisie about Maisie is a huge horror fan, but Sebastian isn't. Did you find it quite amusing trying to put him through those harrowing scenes and see what his reaction would be like?
To be fair, he really enjoyed training with big knives. He
Yes, didn't
really
he? Yeah.
wanted to like play the role of a killer, and he took it home, and he was great with it too. So, like, he'd come in with his little butterfly knife and say, "Look what I practiced,"
Yeah.
and he'd show you what he'd done, and he really took it seriously. I really admired him for that.
So I think what's amazing about Bash is Bash has been in Sebastian, so we call him Bash, has been in the industry for kind of almost as long as we have. He was a child actor who's now, and I can get quite jaded by the job, and I haven't met someone who is I learned a lot from him actually, because he's still so excited by the job and everything that comes with it. And when we would do scenes, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I'm getting to do this for a job. You can get so bogged down over the year in terms of like turning up and flights and the admin and learning your lines and going to bed and washing your hair for the next day that you forget that there's so much joy in that we get to play for a living. And Sebastian sort of ignited that in me again. He would get so excited, like Nick was saying, about the knives and the blood and the gore, and you sort of get caught up in his enthusiasm for it. So he's that sort of spirit was amazing to have on set.
Yeah. Nick, not to get too political because we don't want to do that, right? Especially right now. But
Mm.
was there like, did you find it difficult to sort of, especially after Brexit, to sort of work on a European production like this, or British European production? Were there any like things that were more complicated than in the past? Do you find?
No, not really. I mean, I think we XYZ Films, who co-produced and co-financed the film, have a relationship with the Tampere Film Foundation anyway, and they could not have done more than they did in terms of making the film potential, getting the film made. They took us for dinners, they wooed us,
Wined and romanced us.
they wined, we all the herring we could have. So it was great. It was, I voted to stay. So to now,
I would find it because I was the only Irish member, the European member of the cast, the
yeah.
core cast. And so every time we'd fly back and forth between London, I found it because I'd have to wait for these bloody guys to get through passport control. And at first I'd be like, ha ha. But then I realized because I love them all, I'd still have to wait. So I'd be like, oh,
So depressing, isn't it?
yeah.
Uh, what I mean, this really very much lends itself. I mean, towards the end, not to give anything away again, it lends itself to a possible sequel. What are your thoughts on that, Nick?
Okay, so it would, because obviously I want Sebastian to be in it. It would be a prequel, because there's a few times in the film, especially once the end is kind of revealed, where I say to him, you got on my tits last time, and I'm sorry we invited you back. I'd love to see exactly what he did to get on Daddy's tits. I want to know what he did. How did the holiday go wrong, and what happened? So there's definitely room for a prequel there for the four of us.
So
and
are
even
you
though
writing it?
I haven't, but if they want me to, it will take me 6 weeks.
First one took 8 years, but the second one he can absolutely.
Won't take long.
Yeah, I think if we would all sign up, normally you sort of, if you're in other things, when people mention kind of like sequels, you go, well, if the dates work out and we're all available and our agents do the deal with this, in a heartbeat. I think all of us would be like, in a heartbeat, we would get together. I've rarely been, when you are on acting jobs, you nearly always develop a WhatsApp group. And I have so many dead WhatsApp groups from jobs over the years. And the only job that I have that the WhatsApp group has survived is this job. And I think it sounds like a really wacky way of a testament to how a job went, but the WhatsApp group is still very alive, of myself, Nick, Sebastian, and Maisie, our little family.
We'd shoot it on like Bermuda. Let's go somewhere warm this time.
I don't know that I could I could survive Bermuda, but
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Maybe
Also.
like an entire fan over me like this.
Finally, how would you, let's think, if someone doesn't know anything about this movie, how would you tell them to, so what would you tell them to expect from it?
I like the phrase nuts in mayhem.
Oh, lovely. Very nice.
Nod to Mike Leigh.
Yeah. That's so true. Even our couple and stuff like that. That's a great reference. I'm not sure I can do any better than that. I would say unfamily friendly, family friendly horror.
Brilliant. Thank you again, and congratulations again. And I absolutely loved it, and I love the twist. And Nick, I love everything you do. So, congrats again. Thanks, Ashley.
That's so lovely. What a lovely interview, Linda. Thank you so much.
Lovely to speak to you. Okay.
Have a nice
Bye,
weekend.
guys. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys!